All right, I have 7 o'clock. So I now bring to order this January 11th, 2021 meeting of the City Commission. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now we're going to move into our roll call. And since this meeting is electronic, I'm going to go through and have each commissioner state the city, county, and state where they reside. So Commissioner Perschbacher.
The city of Mount Pleasant, the county of Isabella, and the state of Michigan.
Commissioner Tolis.
City of Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, state of Michigan.
Chris, can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes.
Just so we're clear, you have to state the place where you're attending from, not where you live. So just so that's clear.
My apologies. Okay.
That's okay.
Commissioner Ronan. Yeah, you're muted, George.
Well, I know where I am. Yeah. City of Mount Pleasant, the county of Isabella, state of Michigan. Thank you.
Commissioner Simon.
Right, I'm in the city of Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, state of Michigan.
And Commissioner Gillis.
Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, Michigan.
And Commissioner Joseph.
I am in Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, Michigan.
And Commissioner Alsager.
Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, Michigan.
All right, thank you. Everybody is present and accounted for. And at this time, City Manager Ridley has asked to say a few words.
Commissioners, I wanted to start off our meeting tonight because we learned over the last couple of weeks that 2 of our former city commissioners passed away in the last couple of weeks. And so I thought it would be appropriate to say a few words remembering their service to the city. And then if you would be so kind to have a moment of silence in their memory before we move on to the business of the City Commission. And the first commissioner who passed away was Ron Roby. And Mr. Roby served both at the city and the county. But when he was serving at the city, he spent 4 years serving on our Historic District Commission, and then 8 years under 2 different terms on our City Commission. And then the second commissioner we lost was Keith Speaker. And Keith served on a number of different boards and commissions at the city. He served on our Local Officers Compensation Commission for 4 years. He served on our Mount Pleasant Housing Commission on 2 different times. One was a 10-year stint and the other was an 8-year stint. He was on the Planning Commission for 3 years, the Zoning Board of Appeals for 6 years, and on the City Commission for 6 years, one of those years in which he served as Vice Mayor. And for those of you who knew Mr. Roby and Mr. Speaker, I think you would agree with me that they both shared a strong desire to serve our community. And they both had a heart for individuals in our community, particularly individuals who had personal struggles in one shape or form. And they worked hard to pay attention to those, all individuals in our community, but particularly those. And both of them had a history of serving on other nonprofit entities and doing other things in the rest of their life to help individuals in our community. So on behalf of the city staff, and I think I can speak for the commission too, I would like to extend our heartfelt condolences to both the families and friends of both Mr. Roby and Mr. Speaker, and would now ask that we take 1 minute for a moment of silence in their memories, please. So thank you for allowing us to do that. And I think at this point, we can turn it back over to Chris and start your business at hand for this evening.
Okay, the next thing that we need to do is administer the oath of office for Commissioners Simon and Joseph. So if I could have both of you please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, William Joseph,
I, Olivia Simon,
Do solemnly swear that I will support
do
do
solemnly
solemnly swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States and the state of Michigan,
the Constitution
of the United States and the state of Michigan,
and the Charter of the City of Mount Pleasant,
and the Charter
of the city of Mount Pleasant,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of this office
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of this office
on behalf of all citizens of the City of Mount Pleasant,
on
on
behalf
behalf of all
of all
citizens
citizens of the city of Mount Pleasant,
to the best of my ability.
to the
to the
best of my ability.
ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Chris.
And the next thing that we need to do is to elect a mayor and vice mayor. You'll be voting on the candidates in the order that they're nominated. I will read each nominee's name one at a time, and you'll vote in favor of that nominee by using the raise hand feature in Zoom. I will then read the next nominee, and any commissioner who has not voted will then vote in favor for that nominee by using the raise hand feature. And we'll keep going until the first commissioner reaches 4 votes or a majority to become mayor. And at that time, I'll hand over the vice mayor election to the newly elected mayor. So any questions before we start?
How do we use the raise hand feature?
Okay, down at the bottom of the Zoom call, you should see a participants tab.
Mm-hmm.
And so then if you have that highlighted, you should be able to, over on the right-hand side where they're all listed, on the bottom right-hand corner, there's a raise hand.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome. And with that, any nominations? And the first one I see up is Commissioner Elsager.
I would like to nominate Will Joseph to be our mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Tolis.
I would nominate Commissioner Gillis to be mayor.
Okay. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Okay, we'll go in order that the hands went up. So with that, all in favor of having Commissioner Joseph become mayor, please use the raise hand feature now. And we have 5 yeses. We have Commissioner Simon, Commissioner Joseph, Commissioner Ronan, Commissioner Elsager, and Commissioner Perschbacher. So that is a majority. Congratulations, Mayor Joseph.
Thank you, Chris, and just thank you to the commission for your support. Next, we have the election of the vice mayor, and we'll follow the same process. And so I will recognize hands for nominations. First hand I see, besides my own, is Commissioner Elsager.
I would like to nominate Amy Perschbacher for vice mayor.
Okay. Amy Perschbacher, Commissioner Perschbacher has been nominated. And then Commissioner Gillis, I see, has her hand up.
Yes, I would like to nominate Commissioner Tolis for vice mayor for his decades of experience.
Okay. And Commissioner Tolis has been nominated for vice mayor. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Seeing none, we will close the nominations, and then Commissioner Perschbacher was nominated first. And so at this time, if you are supporting Commissioner Perschbacher for vice mayor, you can raise your hand now. Okay, we have 5 hands up, including myself, Commissioner Elsager, Commissioner Perschbacher, Commissioner Simon, and Commissioner Ronan. So congratulations, Commissioner Perschbacher. You are the vice mayor. Good. All right. Next, we have to set the time and day of our regular meetings. And in the packet, there was the recommendations. Most of our meetings for this year would fall on the second and fourth Mondays, except for in December, which would be the third Monday, December 20th. And so I would look for a motion to accept that schedule. Vice Mayor Perschbacher. Amy, you're muted.
Well, I used that little space bar thing. It didn't work. I move to adopt the resolution as presented.
And Commissioner Toles.
Second it.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the year's schedule for commission meetings? Commissioner Toles, your hand is up.
Sorry.
All right. Okay, with no other hands up, we'll go to a roll call vote on setting the schedule for 2021.
Chris, you're muted.
Sorry. Commissioner Elsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Toles,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
and Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
That passes 7-0.
All right, great. Next is our proclamations and presentations, and we have an introduction of street maintenance specialist Kyle Keebaugh.
Yes, and I think like in prior times, we have a video for this presentation that Nick will start for us.
Shar Rapoon has been the Human Resources Consultant for just
This is
over
the wrong
8 years
video,
and has
Nick.
taken on numerous items such as the administration of all benefit plans, safety officer responsibilities, and creation.
Sorry, that's one of our old ones from last year.
That's the one I downloaded out of the email from the other day. Let me recheck.
Okay. Just when we think we have this down pat, right? If he doesn't have it, we can carry this over to the next agenda. We are just hoping to stay on top of these so that they didn't build up again. Nick, would you prefer we just keep it for the next meeting?
Yeah, the movie I'm playing now is titled 11121. So I imagine that's the one. Or however you would like to proceed.
So do you have it ready to go, or is it the same one that you just played?
It would be the one that I just played again, I believe.
Okay. So we will just hold off onto this and do it at our next meeting. Sorry for that mix up.
No problem.
Okay. Well, next on our agenda, is there any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? I don't see any hands raised. And so next, I think we can go to our public input on agenda items. This is a time for the public to give feedback to the commission on any agenda item. And I just ask members of the public to state your name and your address before you address the commission. And to be recognized, if you're joining us by Zoom, you can hit participants at the bottom of your screen and then raise hand, which will be on the bottom right corner, and I can recognize you for comment. And if you're joining us by telephone, you can hit *9 and that will activate the raise hand feature. While we wait, Manager Ridley, did we have any emailed comments on agenda items tonight?
Let me double check. Nope, I have one, but it's not on an agenda item, so I'll hold that for our next public comment.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any hands up, and so I will close the public comment section on agenda items, and we will move to our receipt of petitions and communications.
Yes, in this section of the agenda tonight, you have the report on pending items, which includes the monthly report that we provide on complaints received. You have the November minutes of the principal shopping district and the listing of payrolls and warrants that were sent out between December 15th and I think it was January 6th are the ones that we put in your agenda packet. And I should mention that we thought we were done issuing checks, so that's why we put them in the packet. But we did issue one additional check on Thursday to Crapo Ford for some of the trucks that we had purchased through the purchase buyback program. So that check was released on Thursday, and that was for approximately $186,000. So that will be added to the list. And then the last item under petitions and communications is the correspondence received from Ponder Coffee regarding their thankfulness for the business assistance that was received during the pandemic.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Next on our agenda is, oh, I'm sorry, I'm seeing a hand. Commissioner Tolis?
Yes, Manager Ridley, I got a question on the spreadsheet there for the last entry on there on 1/6/2021 to Right Express Financial Services. Under description, it's just got NA.
Yes, those are, that's the payment for our credit card company for all of the credit card purchases that happened. And then the next few pages in the packet provide the details of all of the individual transactions that make up that 46,118. And actually your packet has two separate listings because we did one payment on December 8th and a second payment on January 6th. So there's actually two listings of credit card payments that were made during that time period.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Gillis.
Yes, I just want to thank Director Lauria and his officers for another report, outstanding service to our community. And I want to tell them how much we appreciate them and their efforts to keep our community safe. Thank you, Director, and thank you to all of your staff and enforcement officers.
Next on our agenda is the consent calendar. And the consent calendar are items on the agenda with an asterisk next to them. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent calendar this evening? All right, I don't see any hands, so I'll ask Manager Ridley to go through the consent calendar for us this evening.
Yes, we just have three items, Commissioners, on this tonight. The first is to consider approval of the minutes from your last meeting of December 14th. Secondly, is we're asking you to consider approval of a resolution for the Michigan Department of Transportation. And this is a regular resolution that we send to the state so that they have the most updated files with the appropriate names of city staff individuals in our organization who are eligible to submit permits for right-of-ways, for work in the right-of-way. And we are recommending that those 3 individuals on the staff be DPW Director Jason Moore, City Engineer Stacy Tuari, and our GIS Specialist Robin Liptow. And then the third item on the consent calendar is we typically ask you to make appointments of staff members to various boards and commissions. And we've recommended in the packet what those boards are and which staff member would continue to do that. And all of them are the same as what was approved in 2020. But for the benefit of the public, I will go through them very quickly. The first one is for the Building Authority, who would be Finance Director Marianne Cornexel. The Local Development Finance Authority, I would be the member, and then Marianne Cornexel would be the alternate. For the 911 Central Dispatch Governing Board, Fire Chief Rick Beltnick would be the primary member, and Police Captain Andy Latham would be the alternate. We're recommending Street Superintendent Matt Weaver to be the representative on the Isabella County Material Recovery Facility Governing Board, and we still have a citizen representative position available on that board as well. That's available, just to make note of that. For the legislative coordinator, we're suggesting that that continue to be the city manager. For the representative to the Mid-Michigan Area Cable and Telecommunications Consortium, that would be Public Relations Director Darcy Orlick. And lastly is Middle Michigan Development Corporation, which would continue to be Economic Development Director and Community Services Director Bill Mordeza. And I would be the alternate as the city manager. So we're recommending you approve those 3 action items this evening.
Commissioner Tullis,
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented, please.
Commissioner Gillis.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Is there any discussion tonight? Commissioner Tullis. Thank you. Seeing no discussion, we can go to a roll call vote on approving the consent calendar as presented.
Okay, Commissioner Ronan,
Aye.
Commissioner Tolis,
Yes.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
and Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
That passes 7-0.
Next on our agenda is to consider approval of the Airpoint Joint Operations and Management Agreement. And I will hand this over to Manager Ridley for a brief overview. And
Thank you, Mayor. As you will recall, a number of years ago, both the City Commission and the Airport Advisory Board approved motions to have us look into having conversations with some of our local partners about having them become more involved in the airport. And the goals we were hoping to accomplish by expanding that partnership was to have additional individuals who would help us promote the value of the airport to the area, that would help identify opportunities for business and development, that would help identify desired service levels, and would assist in ongoing operations and capital investment at the airport. Since that time, we've had numerous meetings. I was going to go back and count them and decided that I didn't want to know how many times we met on it, so I chose not to do that. But we met with representatives from some of our local partners to decide who was interested in becoming involved in the airport more intently, and how to best structure what that joint agreement might look like. And you'll recall in August of last year, we had a work session where we went over the final draft of the Airport Partners Agreement, which had been drafted by the city attorney and then was revised multiple times based on input from both the partners and their legal counsel as well. And then last November, both all of the partners of Isabella County Board of Commissioners, the Charter Township of Union Board, the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribal Council, and MMDC all approved the agreement and authorized for it to be signed to move forward. And so now it's before you this evening for your consideration. And you will note in my communication that in November, we updated our local airport advisory board because they had been involved in the very beginning part of it as well. So we thought it appropriate to bring them up to speed before the final approval. And they did express some concerns when they saw the final draft of the agreement. And when we met with them, I addressed their concerns in 3 of the 4 areas. One of their concerns was that one of the partners was Middle Michigan Development Corporation, who is not a governmental entity. And we indicated that that is correct. They're not, but they are certainly an entity who's committed to economic development in our area. And they have the ability to be a legal party to the agreement. Their second concern was that because the partners were contributing differing dollar amounts, they were concerned that over time that might create concerns from the partners. And I indicated that each of the partners knew what the other entities had agreed to contribute, and they were all comfortable with those differing financial contribution amounts. But certainly over time, if any of those concerns did come up, there's 2 options available. One is for the parties to amend the agreement, and the second would be if an entity really had significant concerns about it, they could start the withdrawal process so they would no longer be financially obligated. The third concern of the Airport Advisory Board was that there was no city residents that would be serving on the board. And that is accurate. That is a concern that we were not able to overcome. But because it's an advisory board and everything, pretty much all of the activity that happens at the airport has to come before you as the city commission before it's approved. And all 7 of you are city residents. We felt that that might fill the resident input voice on it. And then their last concern was they were uncertain what role their current board of the Airport Advisory Board would continue to have. And I indicated that we were certainly interested in any input they had in regard to that. And the way it is structured, or what we're recommending at this point, is that all members of the Airport Advisory Board continue to serve out their terms. And what we would do is invite them to all of the meetings of the Airport Operations Board, the newly formed one, so that they could help share their knowledge and history with the new board about what they've learned at the airport and some of the history related to it. And before the Joint Operations Board would take any action on any items to recommend to you, they would first listen to any input from the current Airport Advisory Board members. And we saw that as maybe being a way to transition their knowledge to the Joint Operations Board. So we believe that with the contract, the way it's drafted, and with that transition plan, that we would be able to reach the goals that were first set out when we started talking about this airport partners agreement. And so we are recommending tonight that the City Commission be the final approving authority for that agreement, and that you authorize the mayor and clerk to sign it as presented.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Vice Mayor Perschbacher.
I move to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the airport joint operations agreement as presented and to retain the current airport advisory board members until their terms expire.
Okay. Commissioner Alsager.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And any discussion from the commission? Commissioner Toles.
Thank you. I will not be supporting this tonight for numerous reasons that have already been stated. Plus, the Airport Advisory Board voted against signing this agreement. I don't think the #1 MMDC should be on it. I also agree with item 2, item 3, and item 4. I don't believe we should completely phase out this board. They've done a lot of work at the airport. They know all the ins and outs, and all of a sudden we're just going to cast them aside. This agreement should have been compromised so it could add your Airport Advisory Board in with this other board instead of just having them come on a volunteer basis, but I won't be supporting this.
Commissioner Yost?
Yes, I also have some reservations about Jim McBride as a non-contributing member or a nonprofit without representing a district or an area. It seems that many times this commission has taken advisory input from the committees, and even when we've had discussions at the city commission level, always reverts back to what the commission had advised us to do. Of course, except the ad hoc marijuana committee. But otherwise, they always say the EDC has vetted this, so we should go along with their recommendation. The planning commission has vetted this, we should go along with their recommendation. And although I think this agreement is overdue and it is something we have to have in place, I do feel we need a city representative on that committee, other than when it comes to us, and we might have a city commissioner in the future say this was vetted with that committee, yet they had no community input. I also think that there's a lot of capability of issues being passed or finances being allocated to what might not be helpful to all of community members, but only a portion of community members. The reason why I say this is I've had several instances in the last 20 years where the airport had some focus on things that weren't being done properly. Hangars were being used for private storage units and the such. And so people were storing fancy cars in hangars. And as a community, many years ago, the city commission asked us to provide monies so that they could build hangars for planes, yet that's not what happened. Also had a lot of interest in Indian Pines Park, which abuts the airport, and some wrongful actions were done by leasing that Indian Pines Park, and also some other things that have gone on at the airport. So I think the entities of the governmental entities that represent their areas, defined areas, and also are contributing finances are appropriate. I do not believe a representative from MMDC is an appropriate person to be voting on the direction of the airport. Of course, Jim McBride's input on the airport is always welcome, but I don't believe that should constitute a voting established voting from MMDC. And I also believe that there should be a community member as a portion of that, or keep the advisory board on, rather than trying to take all their knowledge and then let them go at the end of their term. They are the ones that have been held the responsibility of giving us information about the airport. They've done their duties. And even though like I say, I'm glad that this intergovernmental agreement has happened, because so far in the decades that the airport has existed, the city taxpayers have paid for all of the airport. No one else has contributed other than the tribe when they approved 2% monies to go towards the airport. But we have always contributed and 100% finance the airport. So with the portions that now are being given by the county and Union Township and the tribe, and the MMDC is giving $1,000 to the airport to be a part of this intergovernmental agreement. I do respect the wishes of the advisory board and what they asked us to do, or asked before this came to us, that they be included, or a citizens person be included, a community member, and the fact that the nonprofit MMDC is going to be part of this intergovernmental agreement that makes decisions for our airport, where we finance probably 90% of the cost of that airport. So I would hope that there's nothing wrong with asking as a group, city commissioners, to re-examine the people that are going to be representing that new group. There's nothing wrong with stepping back and saying, because we are the last persons to get this, nothing wrong with saying, yes, I do believe a citizens a person from our community should be represented there. And maybe you also do have some reservations about MMDC being a portion of that, knowing that they are not a governmental entity. So I will not be supporting this evening.
I just wanted to ask a couple of questions to the city manager. The city will have a representative on this board, and we will also be appointing the MMDC board member, correct?
That is correct. The city commission will make both of those appointments.
And we will retain the budget oversight and approve the budget for the airport, and also including we retain ownership, and we also will be employing all employees at the airport, correct?
That is correct. But I need to go back to your first question, Mayor. Although the city commission has the appointing authority for both the city representative and the MMDC representative, I should clarify that to say that there is a provision in the agreement that says the board members that are appointed shall be either senior administrators or managers of the party appointing them. So although you may be able to have a city resident fill that city spot, they would also have to be a senior administrator or manager of the city to fulfill that requirement of the agreement.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. I just wanted to voice support for this agreement. I know it's been a long time coming, and I think that the benefits outweigh the risk in a large way for myself when I look at that, the makeup of this board and the goals of this board. This board is seeking to put together our community partners who are so important at keeping the airport long-term, to keep it relevant long-term. I mean, Commissioner Gillis's point is well taken that the city has footed the bill for a long time for the airport. And obviously our partners at the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe have been a great help to modernize our airport and keep it alive. I think this agreement, though, goes further in making those aspirations even better and more feasible, of keeping our airport viable for the long term, and also making sure that we can secure growth. For a long time, it's been on the city's docket to keep the airport alive and to make sure that we were complying with all the regulations that come with having an airport. And with an airport that doesn't support itself financially, it always costs taxpayer money to keep it alive. And I think when this agreement puts, I think, the airport front and center to our community partners as well, so that they can see this as an asset and understand that we will succeed better together with our combined contribution and expertise. And so I will be supporting this agreement. I do hear the concern of the Airport Advisory Board being phased out. I do wonder if there is a possibility of keeping that board alive. Possibly they could give recommendations to whoever we appoint to the board. because I do think the community impact and input has been a long time important facet of the airport. And so if there's a way to keep that going while also having the joint operations board to secure our future, I think that is probably the best of both worlds. Commissioner Alsager?
I wanted to voice support for this agreement just because the other boards that have taken the time to look at it see its value and that we can see its value. So I will be supporting it.
Commissioner Ronan?
I just wanted to ask a point of clarification, if possible. My memory of this is that the city could withdraw from this annually, right? At the end of each year, there'd be an opportunity at least. I mean, if the board wasn't functioning the way we wanted, for the city to withdraw from this agreement. Is that correct, Senator Ridley?
That is correct. There's a provision that any partner can withdraw from the agreement with 6 months notice. They have to give notice at July 1st in order to be able to do that.
Yeah, I'll be supporting this. I think it's, at least my read of it is it's a move in the right direction to get things going. And I think it's reasonably crafted to the point where if it doesn't work in the way intended, then we can go back to what we were doing before.
Commissioner Gillis?
I just wanted to clarify. So the city representative will be from staff, not a community member.
That's the way it's drafted, yes.
Okay. And that's my reservations. But I also just want to make a comment again. We usually attempt to, well, in the past have always taken the recommendation of the committees, and that's what the city commission usually stood by, that it was recommended by a certain commission. So being that the airport advisory board voted against having this written up this way, I really think we should take their advice and maybe relook at this again. But I'm sure you have the votes, so thank you.
Commissioner Ronan, I see your hand is still up.
Actually, I meant to lower it, but as long as it's still up. I mean, when I looked at that vote, if I didn't misunderstand it, it seemed like there were 3 people who voted out of the 6, and 2 people voted for it and 1 against it. So it's not like it was an overwhelming. I'm not sure why the other people recused themselves or didn't vote for it, but I mean, I meant to lower my hand. Sorry.
And just to clarify, there's 5 members of the Airport Advisory Board, and you're correct, 2 voted to not recommend it, 1 voted to recommend it, 1 abstained, and 1 was absent from the meeting and was not there to vote.
I guess I would ask Manager Ridley, would it be possible to keep the Airport Advisory Board to continue while still having the Joint Operations Board?
Certainly anything's possible. I think the challenge with doing that is the functions that the Airport Advisory Board previously carried out are all incorporated into this Joint Operations Board agreement. So that board is responsible for those things that the Airport Advisory Board used to do. So that's one of the things we talked about, is what would the Airport Advisory Board do? And if you have 2 boards recommending on the same things, what happens if those 2 boards give you different recommendations is one issue. But the second issue is it really efficient to have 2 separate boards reviewing the airport operations and all of the recommendations from it, when ultimately the city commission makes the final decisions? So that's why we couldn't find a way to there didn't seem to be an obvious way to keep the airport advisory board for the long term. So that's why we thought the transition might help, because 2 of those members have terms that go until December 31st of 2023. 2 members have terms that go to December 31st of 2022, and 2 members have terms that go to December 31st of 2021. So the first year you will, in this transition plan, you would have the input from all 6 of them. In the second year, you would have input from 4 of them. And in the third year, you would have input from 2 of them. And then in the fourth year, you would just have the joint operations board on their own, but there's always opportunity for public input at any of their meetings. So we felt the transition made it recognize their knowledge and input, but yet didn't have 2 boards tripping over each other, for lack of a better word.
I appreciate that explanation. Thank you very much. Commissioner Toles?
It just doesn't make much sense to me that we have an advisory board from the city, and now we're just going to wipe the complete board out. Number 2, we didn't have all 5 members there to vote on this important deal, and it should have been held until we had the full board there to vote on it. And I see why we can't incorporate them in. More eyes on this situation is better, I believe. And not only that, the city is still held liable for it, and we still own it. So what's wrong with having that advisory board stay there?
Commissioner Alsager?
I have a question for Manager Ridley, and it's, I'm assuming that as a functioning board, that their meetings would be made public so that someone like me as an interested party could attend a meeting?
Yes, they are required to be public meetings.
Okay,
and there's
thank you.
always a public input section. And I realized as I was speaking that I misspoke on one thing. There's only 1 member that has a term that goes until December 31st of 2023. I misspoke because there's 5 members on the board, so I apologize for that.
I really appreciate I think the different perspectives and the explanations tonight. I think I still feel very solid in my support for the airport operations agreement. I think that the city still retains the right to create a committee if we so choose. And maybe we see how this goes over the next year. And if we feel that retaining the airport operations board or the airport advisory board would have a useful function and be helpful to the representatives that we appoint. I think that's something the city commission can visit at a later date, possibly this year or next, when those terms start to expire or come close to it. And so I'm still going to support this agreement. And obviously, I think if we moved ahead with retaining the airport advisory board, that it would probably have to be reshaped and rethought about how they would function and how that feedback would be channeled to either the city commission or the appointee to the airport operations board. So, Commissioner Toles, I see your hand is up. I'm not sure if that's from before. Okay. Without any other hands up for discussion, I think we can move to a vote on approving the airport operations agreement.
Okay. Commissioner Alsager?
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis?
No.
Commissioner Simon?
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan?
Yes.
Commissioner Toles?
No.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher?
Yes.
And Mayor Joseph?
Yes.
That passes 5-2.
Okay. Next on our agenda is on a recommendation from our PSD board to consider a resolution on waiving penalties as recommended. And for overview, I'll hand it over to Manager Ridley.
Yes, at their last meeting of December 2020, in December, the Principal Shopping District Board added an item to their agenda and passed a motion recommending that interest and penalties on any unpaid Principal Shopping District special assessments be waived by the city. And we needed some opportunity to do some legal research or to have Mike do the legal research into what types of availability the City Commission had for potentially waiving that interest and penalties. And in summary, I would indicate, and Mike is obviously available if you have any questions, that the research indicates that under the state law, the City Commission does not have authority to waive any interest on unpaid tax bills. And it also confirmed that the City Commission does not have authority on interest or penalties on any of the unpaid tax bills after the tax roll is turned over to the county in March. But you do have authority on the 3% penalty while we still have the roll. And that 3% penalty is applied to any unpaid bills after February 17th and before the beginning of March. So as indicated in the memo, we don't see this decision as having a significant financial impact on the city based on the amount of penalties that have been applied in previous years. But we do see that if you were to approve the recommendation that came from the Principal Shopping District Board, it would provide some acknowledgement to some of the taxpayers who may be struggling to make that payment by February 17th. In the memo from Finance Director Marianne Cornexel, she outlined many options available to you, but of those options, what we're recommending to you this evening is that you consider the resolution that has been drafted that would waive the 3% penalty that you have the authority to be able to do between February 17th and March 1st, but that you take it a step further and waive it for all city taxpayers instead of just the 133 taxpayers who have a Principal Shopping District special assessment. And this recommendation would be consistent with the action that you actually took last year regarding the summer tax bills, because you'll recall you took action to waive those penalties between August 1st and September 15th, because again, you had that ability to under the state law at that time. So the resolution we've drafted for you is consistent with what was done with the summer tax bills and is consistent with the authority that the legal research has shown that you have the ability to do. So we recommend that you approve the resolution that's been drafted that would incorporate that recommendation as presented.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Commissioner Tolis?
To make a motion to approve the resolution for all city residents and waiving the 3% penalty on unpaid taxes between February 17th and March 1st as presented.
I just have a point of order. I believe the resolution is not pertaining to the winter tax bill, but it is to the PSD special assessment.
It's to any unpaid taxes or assessments, any delinquent bills.
I apologize for that. Vice Mayor Perschbacher?
I support.
We have a motion and a support for the resolution. Any discussion? Commissioner Tolis, I see your hand up.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'd just like to say that I think that this 3% fee is obviously not going to be a big impact on the city's finances, and if it, I know it's not going to be probably a huge break for some of our struggling business owners and taxpayers, but it is something, and it's something that we can provide, and so I can see the lack of discussion is probably because this is going to be unanimous vote, I would expect. So with that, I think we can go to a roll call vote on approving the resolution.
Okay. Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolis,
Yes.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
and Commissioner Joseph.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Okay. Item number 11 tonight is to consider a closed session pursuant to subsection 8E of the Open Meetings Act to consult with counsel regarding pending litigation, Sedjo Services Limited Liability Corporation, NE Services Limited Liability Corporation, Pure Relief North Union LLC, and Carry Investments LLC. For this, Commissioner Alsager?
I move we consider going into closed session.
Okay. Vice Mayor Perschbacher?
I'll second that.
All right. This requires no discussion. We'll just go to a roll call vote.
Okay. Commissioner Tolis,
Yes.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
and Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Next on our agenda is announcements on city-related issues and new business. I think I wanted to address a couple of things tonight. The first being, obviously, in the year that we've just came out of 2020 in the pandemic, there's been a lot of tough economic conditions for a lot of people in our community. And so I would just like to remind the public that there are opportunities to help out with people who are struggling, be it from the food pantry, our ICRH, our homeless shelter, and the care store that provides clothing for families and children. And so they're always accepting donations in terms of clothing, food, and if you have the ability to volunteer, I think it would be very much appreciated by those organizations and the people that need your help. Since our last meeting, the country has been in kind of a tumultuous time politically. And on this past week, on January 6th, I think the United States and the world witnessed a grave moment in our grand experiment of elected government. And I'd just like to say a couple of words about that. Unfortunately, the actions of several thousand people who stormed the Capitol and looted and broke things, and people were injured and unfortunately died, sent a clear message to the nation that the voices of citizens through the ballot box did not matter to them. Over 200 years, the United States has prided itself on the peaceful transition of power between governments led by amicable persons and political foes. The importance of the institutions and the choice of the people have always come first before individual ambition. The destruction and looting of our capital is the rejection of those long-held essential norms. I just want to stand today to condemn those actions and put my steadfast loyalty to the electors and citizens that hold power in our democracy. It is a tragedy that comes with consequences. 5 lives have been lost, including Capitol Police Officer Brian Sticknick, who prided himself on protecting our most important institutions. At the end of the day, the electoral process went on, and the results that were never in doubt concluded. However, the damage done is not restored, and as a nation, we must heal and restore faith in our electoral process while holding those who sought to destroy our institutions accountable. On another note, I've been receiving a lot of communications today regarding COVID-19 and the city's response and the public health orders from the Michigan Health Department. And so as the mayor, I want to reiterate the support of the Michigan Health Department orders to reduce the rate of infection of COVID-19 and decrease the overload of our health services infrastructure. These orders have been directed by top health officials to keep Michiganders healthy and are based off scientific data put forth by the CDC and other public health entities. The City of Mount Pleasant City Commission has twice confirmed its support of these measures to reduce the harm of the pandemic public health crisis. In this confirmation, we have put emphasis on voluntary compliance and education as our first priority. As a city, we are dedicated to enforcing the public health orders that have the effect of law. The common enemy we all have is COVID-19, which has accounted for over 350,000 deaths in the United States and over 14,000 here in Michigan. The good news is that with our experience, we have learned how to reduce our infection rates and treat active infections. We also have several vaccines that have close to a 95% efficiency rate that is becoming more available every day. In Michigan, we have been a leader in reducing our infection rates and administering vaccines. Staying the course, practicing social distancing, wearing masks, and becoming vaccinated will get us back to the daily life as we all desire. For all the economic, social, and emotional pain we have experienced, our first and common step is defeating the pandemic together. And then I would just like to recognize Vice Mayor Perschbach.
I would like to thank you, Mayor Joseph, for those words. And I would like to state that the words that you presented, whether it be on the failed attempted coup on our nation, or the fact that we do support the health department's regulations, I'd like to say that I am fully in support of what you had said. I do want to read the chaplain of the Senate, Pastor Barry Black, had closed the tragic joint session of Congress, the most tragic joint session of Congress in history, with these words: We deplore the desecration of the United States Capitol building, the shedding of innocent blood, the loss of life, and the quagmire of dysfunction that threatened our democracy. These tragedies have reminded us that words matter and that the power of life and death is in the tongue. We have been warned that eternal vigilance continues to be freedom's price. And when it comes down to that, that's exactly what we are trying to do. We're trying to be vigilant in keeping everyone safe and protecting everyone. Thank you.
Commissioner Toles.
Yes, I was contacted by a resident business owner in Mount Pleasant, Bashista Baker, who has herbs and etc. on Broadway Street and is representing the group We Are the Country. I just wanted to relay that to the rest of the commissioners that that group is not too happy with the city commission's decisions on a few items, and they will be addressing the city commission. I don't know if she will be addressing during the public comments tonight or not. She called me and asked me when the next meeting was, and I told her it was tonight. So.
Commissioner Elsager.
I would like to, like Amy did, express my appreciation for the comments from our mayor, Will Joseph, and just add a few sentences of my own. As a Mount Pleasant commissioner and citizen, I am very concerned about the health and safety of all of us. And as I watched the events unfold in our nation's capital last Wednesday, I felt fear for the safety of those at the Capitol. We must do all we can to promote peace and understanding among us all. May we learn to live with our differences as our similarities are even stronger. Thank you.
Commissioner Gillis.
Yes. I want to bring it back to local government and how each one of our votes actually brings us a participant in democracy. And as those that felt that they weren't heard, took rise on our Capitol, I would hope that we would all also look at the similarities of the votes we cast here in Mount Pleasant, not only for our city commissioner, but what I have advocated for years, which is election of our mayor by our community members. I say this because for many years, my fellow commissioners that I served with before had interest in selection of mayor by our community members. To finally, it was ripe enough to get some movement and some studies done to see if we would be better served in that way of selecting our mayor. I want to remind you, when I am out of our Isabella County and I talk to people and we may get on the subject of politics, they are very surprised that we don't elect our mayor by our constituents. They are, in their cities, it has worked to allow the leader of our city commission to be representative of both parties or all parties, since we know that Democratic and Republicans are not the only parties to be affiliated with. Last year, when we had a presentation by CMU's CARS, they did research. Unfortunately, our charter committee decided on other subjects, other issues that we may be setting forth to go up to a citywide vote. But selection of mayor by our constituents and community members was not one of them. Even though that was one of the primary reasons why we had research done to see other communities of our population and how they selected their mayor. I want to say that this is near and dear to my heart, not because I was not voted for mayor this evening with 5 years experience, but for the fact that while I've been in the political, watching political issues and commission meetings, it is usually always the majority of one party. Whoever's party is the majority of the 7 commissioners is always elected as mayor. In the past, they have allowed vice mayor to be from the other party, a lot like Isabella County commissioners do, so that both parts of our community members are represented in one way or another in our leadership. Unfortunately, I have not served in that capacity where we have had a mayor of one ideology and a vice mayor of another ideology to represent all of our community members. But I want to say here that in the election of a mayor by the people, you would have to not be promoted only by one party. You would have to represent both parties. You would have to reach out to whatever party you're not affiliated with. And you would have to find common ground, compromise, and by your actions show both parties, or all parties, I should say, in our community, that you represent the people and not the party that you are from. So as I see that we are reflecting by our votes in the November's election, I would like all the city commissioners here that will be deciding this year if we are going to put it up to a citywide vote. Why are you afraid of allowing our community members to vote for mayor? Why would you not allow the voice of the people to be loud and clear of who they think can represent all community members and not affiliated with one party or not affiliated in some other political agenda or political resume and are going to do the work for the people? I could go into a list of many things that I have worked on while I was on the city commission and while I was on the planning commission back from 2005 to 2007. And I want my mayor to represent all the city commission, all the city community members. I want my mayor to be here because they want to do the right thing for the commission and for no other reason. For the commission, the right discussions, the values of our communities, and to represent us as a whole. We would allow a mayor then to also represent the other parties that they are not from or they are not affiliated with. I do think it would be a better form of government. From the people I've talked to outside of our areas, they seems to be working well, and it does bring more people into city commission and more willing to talk to a mayor because they know they represent the whole of the community. So as we're talking about the importance of voting and the importance of the voice of the people and the importance of bringing people into this political arena, I would like to know community members, this will be being discussed this year. And I just want to allow the city commissioners to think of that a mayor elected by the people would mean the mayor has to appeal to all of our community members. And I think that would be a better way to run our leadership. So thank you for listening. I also want to just give you an update real quick on some of the vacancies. Forget that because my emails and all my tabs on Google are still blank. So sorry, we'll do that next time because I know there's several vacancies. But just for those that are interested, you could go to mountpleasant.org to boards and commissions. And on that page, it shows 6-7 different vacancies. Please put in your application and please, so that we could fill those vacancies. And we would love to see you join our team. Thank you.
Commissioner Ronan?
Yeah, I actually served on the charter committee that discussed this. I don't want to go into the details, but I think the charter committee is coming across with some fairly significant recommendations for altering the length of time a mayor serves, as well as the number of years commissioners serve, that is consistent with cities that have an elected mayor. Our system isn't. I don't want to go into all the details, but I encourage community members that are interested to pay particular attention when that comes up on the agenda, because it does present some interesting changes, perhaps in a transition towards something eventually. But, you know, I think the charter committee was thoughtful in terms of what it reviewed, in terms of the recommendations it made. And my hope is that any city members that are interested in that will pay close attention when that comes up for a discussion, hopefully later this term.
And Commissioner Toles?
I just want to agree with Commissioner Gillis on most of her comments. I think this city commission is supposed to be a nonpartisan body, and I'm sad to say it's not. I don't condone what happened at the Capitol, but that's all I'm seeing on TV and the news every 5 minutes. But we don't talk about all summer in Portland, where there's millions upon millions of businesses that were ruined, people were hurt, and everything else. And I don't hear anything about Portland. you have a couple bad eggs that broke into the Capitol there, and then all of a sudden, oh, it's a massive coup now to take over the government. Well, what was happening in Portland for the last 6-7 months and the other major cities? This is just depressing.
Mayor, before you open up public comment, I have 2 items, if I may, please.
Of course.
To help out Commissioner Gillis, since she was having computer difficulties, I pulled up the current vacancies and can announce those to help out, if you don't mind, Commissioner Gillis. The vacancies that we still have to fill on our boards and commissions include the Building Authority, the Cultural and Recreation Commission, the Dog Park Advisory Board, the Downtown Development Authority, the Historic District Commission, as I previously mentioned, the Material Recovery Facility Governing Board, the Local Officers Compensation Commission, and the Tax Increment Finance Authority. So we have 1 vacancy on each of those boards. And throughout the year, it is not uncommon for us to have vacancies occur on other boards and commissions. So as our residents are looking at that part of our website, I would encourage them to also look at other boards and commissions. And if they have interest in others of those, they could submit applications at this point in time, so we have them on file if other vacancies do come up. So I hope you don't mind that I did that, Commissioner Gillis. Doesn't mean you can't do it again next meeting, but I figured I'd get it out there. So, and then the second thing I wanted to mention is about the vaccine availability in our community. We've had a number of conversations with the health department over the last couple weeks, and they are working very hard to be able to get vaccines or shots in arms, for lack of a better word, in our community. But their biggest limitation is the amount of supply that they have available for those vaccines. So they are following the priority guidelines that were issued by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services about which categories of workers get vaccinated first, and are following those guidelines. And as you know, the governor announced that individuals in the, I think it's 65 to 74-year-old category, even though it's a 1C, are eligible. But there's just not enough vaccines available to be able to get to all of those individuals in the 1A and 1B categories, and now this age group. So we've been encouraging residents to watch the local health department webpage because they are posting regular updates on availability there. And they also have forms that can be filled out if you fall into one of those eligible categories, and you can submit your name and email and different information so that they can keep you apprised of when they might be having clinics and when they might be having availability. So I encourage our residents to watch that website and try to have some grace with our local health department, because I think they're doing the best that they can right now with trying to get those vaccines out. And that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Pete, I think your hand is up from previous.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I forgot to take it down again.
That's all right. I just want to make sure. All right, I think we can move on from announcements on city-related issues into public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. And this is the time for the public to address the commission on any city-related business. And as I said before, I appreciate state your name and your address. And if you're joining us by Zoom, you can, at the bottom of the screen, hit participants, and then in the bottom right corner, the raise hand button. And if you're joining us by phone, you can hit *9 and you'll be able to put your hand up and I can recognize you for comment. Manager Ridley, you mentioned earlier there was an emailed comment.
Yes, we received one email comment from Liz Bush, and Ms. Bush said, "Hello, I would like to inquire if there will be any sidewalk planned for Oak Street between Michigan and Broadway. Especially with the new development across from City Hall, there needs to be a safe way to get from residences and other businesses near the Oak Street downtown corridor. Right now, that passage is made by pedestrians right on the street, and especially since it is very hilly there and there is a lot of risk to that. Increased foot traffic along that street with new development will expose even more pedestrians to that risk. So I will check our capital improvement plan and respond to Ms. Bush on her inquiry so she knows what may or may not be planned in that area. And that's the only written communication we received.
Thank you. I don't see any hands up in our attendees. And so at this time, I will close the public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. And at this time, I think we can take maybe a 5-minute recess, and the commission will come back for our closed session. But this is the end of the public part of our meeting for tonight. And so after our closed session, the meeting will be adjourned. So thank you, everybody. Manager Ridley?
I was just going to remind the commissioners that for the closed session, you have a different link that you have to click on. So you'll have to leave this meeting and click onto the new one. And we will not be taking any action after that closed session.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.